Dark psychology is the hidden science of manipulation, a realm where human intentions no longer shine with honesty, but twist into shadows. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, with subtle behaviors that most people overlook. The human mind is naturally wired to trust, to seek connection, and to believe in the goodness of others. But the darker side of psychology exploits this trust, bending it into a tool of control. In every relationship, professional, romantic, or casual, there can exist a silent power struggle that most people never recognize until it's too late. This script explores the mental tactics used by manipulators, the victims who fall into their psychological traps, and the emotional impact of living under invisible influence. At the center of dark psychology lies one primary concept: control without detection. A skilled manipulator rarely shows their intentions. They wear charm like a mask, smiling, gentle, encouraging, while secretly guiding the thoughts and actions of others. They understand weaknesses better than most people understand their own strengths. They observe everything: the hesitation in your voice, the insecurity in your eyes, the way you avoid confrontation. With this information, they craft strategies to gain influence over your decisions, often making you believe the choices were entirely your own. To them, people are puzzles, complex, emotional, and predictable once properly studied. One of the most powerful tools in dark psychology is gaslighting, a method designed to destabilize someone's sense of reality. Gaslighters plant seeds of doubt so gradually that the victim begins questioning their own thoughts. For example, if you confront a manipulator about something they clearly did, they may deny it convincingly, twist the narrative, or accuse you of imagining things. Over time, the victim becomes mentally exhausted, relying on the manipulator for clarity instead of trusting themselves. This psychological dependency gives the manipulator complete authority over the victim's emotions, making escape feel nearly impossible. Another tactic is love bombing, commonly used at the beginning of toxic relationships. Here, the manipulator overwhelms the target with affection, praise, and attention, creating an emotional high. The target feels special, chosen, and deeply valued, exactly as the manipulator intends. But once trust and attachment are established, the affection is suddenly withdrawn. The manipulator becomes cold, distant, or unpredictable. The victim desperately tries to regain the warmth that once felt so real. This emotional roller coaster creates. Some manipulators go even further, using triangulation, bringing a third person into the relationship to create jealousy, insecurity, or competition. This technique keeps the victim emotionally unbalanced, constantly seeking approval. It also prevents the victim from recognizing the manipulator's true intentions, as attention becomes fragmented and confusing. In friendships, workplaces, and families, triangulation can create lasting emotional damage, poisoning trust between all parties involved. Perhaps the darkest aspect of dark psychology is the predator mindset. Manipulators often study their targets before making a move. They identify who is empathetic, who is insecure, who avoids confrontation, and who seeks validation. People with kind hearts and high emotional sensitivity are often the primary targets, not because they are weak, but because they care deeply. A manipulator uses empathy against its owner, twisting compassion into vulnerability. They act like victims to gain sympathy, or heroes to gain admiration. Every gesture is calculated. Every word is a step toward deeper control. Victims of dark psychology often experience emotional burnout, losing their sense of identity. They stop expressing their needs, fearing judgment or rejection. They lose confidence, believing the manipulator's narrative. Eventually, they may feel trapped inside a psychological cage built from fear, confusion, and dependence. The manipulator's goal is not always dramatic. It is often slow and quiet, designed to reshape the victim's thinking without resistance. But the most important insight is this: recognition breaks manipulation. Once a person identifies the tactics being used against them, the manipulator loses power. Awareness is the antidote to control. You begin to see the pattern, the lies, the emotional traps. What once felt confusing becomes clear. The mask falls. The more you understand dark psychology, the easier it becomes to protect your boundaries, trust your intuition, and disconnect from toxic influence. Dark psychology teaches us two lessons. First, there are people who use psychological tactics to control and exploit others. Second, and more importantly, you have the ability to defend yourself. Strength is not about becoming cold or emotionless. It is about recognizing manipulation and choosing self-respect over fear. When you understand the shadows of human behavior, you no longer fear them. You rise above them.